Just record. And AI is one of those love-hate things, but they do have a really cool feature now. Hello, Sarah. And Sarah's glad I'm running behind. We do everything works out for a reason, right? So we have really awesome new feature here where I can do closed captioning, which makes this more accessible to others. And then we also have a little AI that will create a little synopsis of our class for us, which I think is super awesome as well. Um, because that means that gives it accessible, it gives us a little handout we can have at the end. I'm excited. So if you guys haven't noticed, my background is completely different. I am in a completely new location, and part of that is healing some generational trauma, which, is just amazing and incredible. So whether you're watching the replay or joining me live, likely you are doing so um, because you know generational trauma very, very well. And generational trauma it's sneaky, because it's something that sometimes we don't even know is affecting us. You know, it's something that kind of comes up in the background, that hangs out in our DNA and our subconscious, and it makes life tricky. Yes, it's sneaky. I was just reading my mind here, like tricky, and it's heavy, and it affects us, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then we're over here wondering, like, why am I stuck? Why are these things bothering me? And it can appear as, you know, money issues through vows of poverty or poverty consciousness. It can appear as generational health issues through epigenetics and DNA. It can appear as emotional imbalances like anxiety and depression. And it can appear as just roadblocks or repetitions in our life. And so I want to pause by just reminding you guys, I'm not a therapist and I'm not a doctor. What am I? I am a credentialed life coach to the International Coaching Federation. I am a spiritual healer. I am a licensed minister, and I am a Reiki master, but that does not make me a doctor or therapist. So anything that we're talking about is purely spiritual in nature. And I do encourage you to be supported on the other side from those awesome licensed practitioners. Um, but jumping back into this, I've had some very interesting realizations with my husband. We have been noticing themes in our lives that are repeating themes that our family went through. So, for instance, my father picked up my entire family when I was a kid, moved us up to Portland, Oregon to attend medical school. And what did we just do? We just picked up our entire family. We moved to the Pacific Northwest, not Portland, uh, but we moved to the Pacific Northwest to attend medical school. And I'm like, holy shit, we're doing what my parents did. My husband worked out of town for 2 years before that. And that's something his dad did. He worked out of town. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these repeating patterns over and over and over again. These are these generational traumas. And we are reliving these experiences that our parents, our grandparents, our ancestors experienced because for some reason or other, the lesson wasn't quite learned. The healing didn't take place. The blockages still remained. Right? I love I love what we have Sarah. She's got some great comments today. She goes, we have generational issues of house fires. And so is that something that's in your family? Feel free to like respond to that. But it's so true. There's all this generational stuff, and then we see, people are like, oh, XYZ illness runs in my family, right? In my family, that's heart issues. Um, Poverty conscious runs in my family. One thing that I found very helpful and interesting is doing your family history. because when you know your family, you know what you can heal. And so there is a website that I utilize a lot. It's called Relative Finder. This is one I highly encourage you to use in conjunction with their sister website, which is more focused on personal genealogy and family history, called Family Search. And Family Search connects with Relative Finder. But I'm going to kind of show you a little bit with Relative Finder. Now, if you're from a predominantly European background, you're definitely going to have an easier time with this, I will say. They are definitely working on being more accessible to other people who have different heritages. But just be aware that if you have Indigenous heritage or heritage from other non-European, non-American countries, you may not have as much success, but there are other options within this that can be helpful as well. So I am sorry that it comes from, a somewhat whitewashed perspective here. And if anyone has other tools that are accessible for others, please share those in the comments. For those that are not of, this type of background, it would be super useful. But I do know that they're increasing these resources every day. So again, I apologize that it may not be totally accessible for everybody, but I hope that at least some of us can get some use of this. So I'm showing you this Relative Finder. The reason why I want to show you this is I want to kind of illustrate a point. So these are some of my family members, all these fun people. What's really fun is you have built in, like, so these are all the famous people that you would be related to. They also have groups. Hold on here. So here's some groups, that I'm connected to. Now, I will say this is run by the LDS Mormon Church. Where I'm in a deconstructive mode with this religion that I grew up with. But I will say leave the religion out of it because it's still a very highly helpful tool. And so I hope that I'm not triggering anybody's religious trauma with sharing this. But I'm just going to kind of select something here. I'm just going to select famous Americans for now. Now, a lot of these are like really distant, some of them are like, hey, that's your grandfather. That's really close. Some of them are cousins and things like this. But when we go in here, we can start picking out, like, I love this one, Martin Luther King, eighth cousin, but still very cool. There's that connection. We can start seeing, oh, I didn't know I had Muhammad Ali either. We can start seeing people, and the famous people are kind of useful in the sense that there's a lot of history on them, so we know about these things. So it is easier for us to say, I'm related to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson had a lot of emotional disruptions, and we see those connecting in the family, right? So it's just interesting. And I'm just sharing this as kind of a tool for you to be like, oh, I can see this person with XYZ history, and I can see that going through our family lineage, right? And a lot of these are super distant. But for me, it's just really interesting as an illustrative point of saying, oh, I see this person. I understand. Here's one. Let's see if I can get it to pull up. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't because it's both sides of the family. But let's see if it's up there today. It is kind of a beta thing. The one that I am specific, there we go. Robin Williams is the one I'm specifically looking at. So I'm actually connected through like 3 different family members. And when you have multiple connections, it won't show all of them. He's my 5th cousin on one side and 8th cousin on the other, because both my family has the similar connections. But Robin Williams is a great illustrative point. Robin Williams dealt with depression and, significant, he was that person that appeared happy, but was really internally depressed. This is a common generational ancestral theme in our family. And so when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, one, he looks like my dad. We can see it in the eyes. My family have like kind of those sad eyes with those blue eyes. But all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, oh my God, this is not just a me thing. This is not just a now thing. This is things that's being passed through all of those entangling moments. And so it's very interesting and very cool to see who you are related to, but it helps kind of illustrate um, you know, something else is that look at how these things run through lines and generations. And it's not just parent to grandparent, but it's cousins and grand uncles and aunts and many, many years have passed. Let's see, another comment seeing some of your famous relatives. I see some that we also have. We're also probably distantly related. Now, this is a really cool, interesting thing too, because as we heal, we attract those that have similar wounds as us. And so, is there a high likelihood that everyone on this call has some sort of entanglement with me, ancestral or generational? I would say yes. Sarah's already saying she thinks she sees a connection. And, there might be others that, like, maybe you jump into this and you start loading up the site, and you're like, oh my God, we have similar relatives too. Right? I mean, and this illustrates a really kind of all-encompassing spiritual theme. The theme and the idea that we are all one. As one suffers, we all suffer. As one heals, we all heal. And into that quantum entanglement theory through physics and science is that we are all connected. We are all entangled. We are all kind of having these moments. And sometimes we feel like we're so very alone with these things, when in essence, we're all very connected. And we're connected in our pain and our healing and in those experiences. There's many, many scientific studies that have shown how epigenetics works and how these connections work. Some of the more profound ones are, studying the victims of the Holocaust. And then they study their grandchildren and their children, and they noticed a pattern that these people connected with the original experiencers of the Holocaust were either more or less resilient based on their experiences. And I always tell my clients, and not to negate or diminish someone's experience of trauma, but that it's not as important about what happened to you as it is how you process that. So if you have an ancestor all the way, way back when who had a really bad experience and they stuffed it down, they internalized it, they had, they were really traumatized, that ingrained in the DNA, because they say our grandmothers carry the eggs that are our mothers, and that becomes us. So those are passed on from many generations, even before we were born. A great example is a client that I had. She came in with adrenal insufficiency. And the adrenal insufficiency was really interesting to her and to me because, when we look at an adrenal disorder, these are disorders that are connected typically with fight or flight, right? They're triggered by just really intense stuff. And so typically someone who's had an adrenal disorder, you can kind of see a pattern of trauma, or abuse, or like a really horrible experience, like something like in the world happened and it affected them. But it's usually you can see this pattern. With her, it was very different. She didn't have any of those typical patterns. She didn't have anything that would indicate fight or flight for her. She lived a great life, had no childhood trauma. She was more Zen than I could ever hope to be. She was like this Zen master meditation guru yoga teacher. And so here she's having issues with her adrenals. And so during her reading, I went in and I was like, asking her about it. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Because, what I'm seeing is not making sense as to where this illness could have come from and why she's experiencing it. And I was taken to this vision of this woman, and she was running frantically through a forest. She was wearing older clothing, and she was running frantically through a forest, panting and hiding. And I could feel the fear well up. And then I heard, I'm Jewish, And I was like, interesting. And so I went in and after this, I said, this is what I'm seeing. And I told her what I saw. And I said, and then I heard that you were Jewish. And she goes, oh, yeah, yeah, I am Jewish. And she goes, you know what? I think that was my grandmother. My grandmother ran from the Nazis in World War II for like 2 or 3 months. She was hiding in the forest and running away, trying to get to safety. Well, now we know where that started. It was a grandmother thing, it wasn't hers. And grandmother, we're thinking about the 30s, 40s, 50s. There was not such a thing as therapy, and nobody got support. It was just like, suck it up and continue to live your life, right? So grandmother probably likely just had to internalize it and continue moving on. She had no other options, right? And now granddaughter is going, why am I having issues like this? Because it was ingrained in her from very long, long ago. And something as small as a car accident, like a fender bender or a, scary movie could have flipped that light switch in her DNA and sent that spiraling, right? And so it's really interesting to see that a lot of the stuff we carry is not our fault, right? We had no control over it, right? And it's one of the things I tell my children all the time. And I actually, this message came on the lid of a kombucha bottle. And I remember I was showing it to my son. This is years ago. But the message was this, is that we can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we heal it, right? And so that was like this really profound moment for me, because I remember all my trauma and the things that weren't my fault, all the abuses and things that happened to me. And those weren't my fault, and they weren't fair, and they were horrible things to happen to a child that had no control over them. They were not my fault, but the healing is my responsibility, right? It is my job to say this ends with me. It is my job to say I'm not going to allow this to affect me. The forgiveness work is my job. And I always tell my clients, the first time that someone told me I needed to forgive, I was like, no, thank you. That person broke me. They fixed me. I'm a victim. I remember how proud I was to say, I'm a domestic violence victim in my little domestic violence thing. I'm a victim, but I got out. I'm doing better, but I was still a victim, right? And when I had the realization this, that as long as I identified as a victim, identified as someone else caused my problems, they needed to fix them. The things were never going to heal and things were never going to get better, because I was giving my power away. I was saying, you have the power to control me. You have the power to control my emotions. I'm giving my power to you. And this is how I describe it, like to my clients. Say you bought your dream car you've always, always wanted, perfect color, perfect everything. And then the person or persons or whatnot who hurt you come up to you and they're like, give me your keys. I want to drive your car. And you're like, okay, cool. I'll sit in the back seat. You drive my car. You take me wherever you want me to go. I'm just along for the ride. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be along for the ride with anyone who's hurt me. And I wouldn't trust anyone who's hurt me to drive my favorite new car. So why do we trust people like that and expect people like that to heal us or to fix us? Right? And so sometimes with generational stuff, we may never even know who caused it or why it happened. I mean, there's always fun stuff like past life regressions and you know, uh, through my spiritual readings, we see a lot of this past lives, but you don't need to know who caused it or why to heal it, to feel it. Um, you can just know that it exists. You could just set the intention that I am releasing this. I am letting this go so I can heal. And it's so very powerful to take your power back, whether it's from ancestral or generational. It's so powerful to break the chains that bind us and say, I'm done being a part of this mess and this chaos. And as we break those chains, sometimes the universe will come back and be like, are you sure? We've been comfortable in this mess for generations. Are you sure you want to break this? And there'll be people and experiences that'll come back into your life and try to push you towards where you're comfortable, even if that place of comfort is really discomfort and not good for you. And so we're going to start into kind of the meditative spiritual healing portion of this class. And we're going to do some of that work. You can do this healing work anytime that you want. It is not restricted to this class. It is not restricted to a one-time thing. Oh, we're releasing, but it is powerful and it is super healing. And so when we start this, I want you to set the intention that this healing work is sent back through all generations in time for anyone who chooses to accept it. And that's the important thing, is that we don't want to affect the agency, even if it's our ancestors who are wreaking havoc on us. So everyone has the choice to accept it. And it can go back all the way to the beginning of time, or it can skip people. That is okay. So, but we are going to allow that healing to go back as far as it goes, as far as we can. And we're going to break the chains that bind us to those that don't want to heal, because let's be honest, some people don't want to heal. Even if they've passed on, you know, it is what it is. So if you're new to meditating or meditating with me, we're kind of like a messy meditation here, but it works. We take deep breaths into the nose, expanding out our stomach and our lungs, and we exhale longer than our inhale. We are just releasing as we heal. And there are things just like my yawns, burping, farting, sneezing, needing to run to the restroom are all signs of releasing and healing. So allow yourself to have all of those experiences. Find your space and your calm as we go. If at any time it feels emotionally difficult or disruptive to you, don't force yourself to continue. You can always come back and watch the recording later, and I'll get those recordings up pretty quickly. So be okay with coming back and watching it later. Be okay that if I tell you to visualize something, if you struggle with it, it doesn't mean you're a bad meditator. That is totally fine. Everybody meditates, everybody visualizes differently. So don't judge yourself, just be and follow along the best that you can. And so, without further ado, let us start with our meditation. And we're going to start with 3 deep breaths in. So, we're going to breathe in and exhale out. Breathe in and exhale out. Breathe in and exhale out. As we begin this meditation, we begin with our roots. Like the tree, we spread those roots deep into the ground, connecting and intertwining, reaching out the furthest distances as we start to connect and reconnect with our ancestors. with the generations that came before us. We allow ourselves to flow deeply, powerfully, and connect, interconnect, noticing the connections between us and our generations and our ancestors before us. Visualize what those connections look like. Are they cords? Are they ropes? Are they chains? Whatever it is, there's no right or wrong answer. It just is. We just want to notice how we are connected with our ancestors. Is it big or is it small? How many connections are there? Knowing that we cannot ever fully break the bonds, but that we can heal them. I want you to envision, either with your mind, with feeling, or just speaking out loud, sending beautiful golden energy into those connections. Watch the energy expand through the material as it moves backwards through time. Gently and powerfully as it moves through those connections. Watch the golden light start to illuminate and expand as it moves backwards. 1 year, then 2, then speeding up to 3 and 4, 5, speeding up more, healing all the way back through 10 generations, then 20. This light goes through and it expands through 30 generations, 40, 50, through as many generations that have existed before you. We send this healing light all the way back through to the beginning of time, to the very first moment of existence, through the generations that are connected to you, all the way back, 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 until it hits the wall, which is the beginning of time. We send this beautiful, pure golden light of illumination and of healing. As these cords and connections are illuminated, we send them out sideways through all layers, levels, dimensions, throughout every entanglement in time, throughout all ancestors that are connected to us in all ways. We send all of that energy back and out. We set the intention that this energy is freely and openly given and received by any and all that wish to receive it. That there is no limit or restriction to this healing, and that it is given freely, but it must be taken with agency. So if there are any ancestors, relatives, connections within our generational connections and our ancestral connections that choose not to receive this healing, we ask that the healing will bypass them with love and peace and understanding as it continues on throughout the other generations who are willing to receive it without break, without disruption, as it moves back, 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 and continues to heal as it moves to the side and moves into that. As we watch this energy flow, we watch the material of the connections start to change, that the bonds start to heal, that the destructive energy that has come from the past is slowly, surely, and completely dissipated and released. That we watch the chains, the ropes, and the connections that are disruptive and damaging crumble and disintegrate all the way into the past, all the way to the beginning of time, through all layers and all levels. We allow this healing to restore and balance. We ask that all pain, all trauma, all disruptive and harmful experiences be released from our body, mind, and soul, from our perspective, from the ancestors and the generations who have walked beyond and past us. We ask that this healing also moves into the future throughout the posterity of those who are yet to come on walk on this earth. We send this healing. We ask that this healing be received freely and completely by all those who would like to receive it. Let's take a deep breath in. We ask the body, mind, and soul to restore, rebalance, and heal the DNA that is carried throughout generations. We ask this light and energy to restore and repair and fix the missing pieces, the disconnects, the congestion and blockages within the DNA, allowing the DNA to move as it is meant to move in a beautiful spiral, a clockwise motion of healing and restoration, in a counterclockwise motion of releasing and balancing as it moves back and forth to the universal rhythm. We ask that the DNA be healed, that the illnesses and emotions that have been carried through generations and ancestors be released with love, with peace, with gratitude. We say thank you. Take a deep breath in and release. Feeling into your heart, either out loud or to yourself. Speak these words. In my heart, in my mind, my soul, and my DNA resides the memories of my ancestors. I ask body and soul to release all that is damaging, disruptive, and harmful, all the painful experiences and emotions, all the physical, spiritual, and emotional illnesses. I ask to be released from my body, mind, soul, from my perspective, and from my DNA. Breathe in, say thank you. As we watch all of those disruptive energies start to fall away, it's like ash in the fire and dust in the wind. It falls away from our bodies and our perspectives. We ask that the winds of change move through, sweeping away, healing and restoring this energy, finding a new perspective in life, and allowing the healing to fully and completely take place. Balancing body, mind, and soul, releasing fears, releasing disruptions. We ask that the root be open and complete as it allows the energy to rebalance, to flow up to the top of our head, and then down back through the body into the feet, grounding, rooting, interconnected. Sweep down the energy, releasing any remaining energy, grounding the energy. Take a deep breath in your mind or out loud. We say, release, 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 heal, heal, heal. I hold the power within me to heal and release, to command the generations, to allow my DNA to be balanced and healed through the energy that is me. Surrounding around us, we find a beautiful white and golden light, wrapping our body in its beautiful healing rays and energy, filling every crack, every crevice, every hole, as the healing seeps into the very essence of our being. You take a deep breath and saying out loud or in your mind, I permanently clear all negative attachments, emotions, energies, and experiences from my body, mind, soul, and DNA, backwards through time, forward into the future, sideways, up and down. I clear all layers on all levels, fully, permanently, and completely. I release and I am healed. You say thank you. Thank you for the healing that has taken place today. Thank you for the healing that will continue to take place in the future. Thank you to God, Creator, the universe, the ancient holy masters, our ancestors, and all those who have supported the healing today, as well as in the future. We are truly grateful. Amen. Breathe in and release. When you're ready, start to move your body. Wiggle the fingers and the toes. Stretch. And at your own timing, open your eyes and come back into the room. As we continue to heal, there may be some disruptions, there may be interesting experiences, you may just feel tired. All things are valid. All healing experiences are not the same. So allow yourself to continue to heal as you go throughout the day. You may notice disruptions from family members or ancestors because we've sent this healing back through many people. And so maybe you've got no contact with a family member and they suddenly call you, or someone just randomly stops in to say hello. Just notice that this is part of that healing process. Make sure that you retain strong boundaries for your healing. Please take time to go outside if you can, ground your energy, stay well hydrated. Tomorrow, if you're able, a nice salts water or Epsom salts cleansing bath can go a long way. Grounding is going to be very important because we are healing and reconnecting that root chakra. So continue to kind of give yourself that space. Try to avoid scary movies or emotionally disrupting things like watching the news. As your healing process continues, feel free to come back and watch this video at any time, so that you can continue on this path. Know that healing is never a one and done thing, and that it's usually a lifetime journey of consistently healing and rebalancing and finding things in your path for healing. Um, and that kind of concludes our class for now. It ends a little bit earlier than anticipated, but I am more than happy to stay and answer questions in the next few minutes. If anyone has any questions when it comes to generational or ancestral healing, or questions about what you experienced in this class, I will kind of open that up and give time to you guys for the next few minutes to go ahead and do that. And you can feel free to chat in the chat box or unmute if you would like. You are welcome, Carol. Thank you for coming. You're welcome, Sarah, as well. All right, I'm not seeing any questions or comments, so I hope that you guys will enjoy the rest of your day. I will be getting this recording up later today and emailed out for you to watch at any time that you would like to continue the healing process. And thank you all for being here today, and participating with me. And I hope that you guys have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you at our next class. Bye. Thank you.